Jake Morrison stood on the bridge of his ship, the UES Harmony. Through the large windows he watched as strange blue aliens walked onto his vessel. These creatures moved like water, smooth and flowing. Their big eyes looked around with wonder, not fear. Jake had seen many alien species during his 3 years as a commander, but the Zephyrians always amazed him with how trusting they were. Lisa Chen, his second officer, stood next to him. She kept her face calm and friendly, just like all humans did when dealing with other species. For the past 3 years, humans had become known throughout the galaxy as the best peacekeepers. When fights broke out between different alien races, everyone called on Earth for help. The latest problem involved the Korthak Empire. These aggressive aliens looked like giant lizards and loved to fight. They had been threatening the peaceful Zephyrian colonies, demanding money and resources. If the Zephyrians refused to pay, the Korthak promised to destroy their cities from space. Danny Rodriguez sat at his station watching the communication screens. He was young but smart, and Jake trusted him to handle all the technical work. Right. Now Danny was making sure that Ambassador Helen Carter could talk to both sides clearly. Carter was in the main meeting room, speaking through a special device that let her talk to the Korthak leaders many light years away. Her voice stayed steady and calm as she offered different solutions. Maybe the Korthak could trade with the Zephyrians instead of robbing them. Maybe they could share knowledge and culture. There had to be a way to solve this without anyone getting hurt. The Zephyrian Prime Minister, Veltar, whispered to his assistant, "Humans always find peaceful answers. They never use violence. The old stories were right about them being children of peace." What the aliens did not see was how Jake's hands gripped his chair so tight that his knuckles turned white. They did not notice how Lisa's jaw muscles got tight when the Korthak commander laughed at their offers. They missed how Danny's fingers moved over buttons that controlled weapons the ship was not supposed to have. They did not catch the tiny pause in Carter's voice when she talked about bad things happening if the peace talks failed. The talks went on for days. Each day, the Korthak got bolder and ruder. They moved their big warships closer to Zephyrian space. They made bigger and crazier demands. Through it all, the humans kept smiling. They offered tea to everyone. They talked about understanding each other and working together. But when the aliens went to sleep, the humans had different conversations. Jake's private room was small but comfortable. Maps of space covered the walls, but these were not normal maps. They showed every Korthak ship, every weapon, every weak spot. Jake had been studying these maps for weeks. Danny knocked on the door and came in. He was cleaning his weapon, moving, his hands like he had done this 1,000 times before. "How much longer do we keep pretending?" he asked. "Until they cross the line," Jake answered. He pointed to the maps. "Command told us to keep acting nice until talking stops working." Lisa joined them. She looked tired but alert. "And then what happens?" Jake's face did not change, but something cold appeared in his eyes. "Then we show them why no one ever conquered Earth." The next morning, more bad news came from the Korthak. They had attacked a small Zephyrian transport ship. The ship was full of families trying to escape the danger. Men, women, and children had been turned to dust by Korthak weapons. The video of the attack reached the council within hours. Jake watched the terrible footage with his crew. He saw the fear in the Zephyrian faces just before their ship exploded. He heard the voices of children cut short. His hands slowly formed fists. "Sir," Danny said quietly, "Earth Command is asking for a status report." Jake looked at his officers. These people had served with him for years. They had all joined the military to protect others. They had learned to smile and talk nicely because that was what the galaxy expected from humans. But underneath those smiles, they were still soldiers. "Tell Command that the Korthak just made their choice," Jake said. And it was not the smart choice. Carter's voice could be heard from the meeting room, still trying to find a peaceful solution. She was explaining to the Korthak that attacking civilians was wrong. She was offering more deals and compromises. But Jake could hear something different in her voice now. It was still calm, but there was steel underneath. The Korthak commander, General Thax, was laughing. His species had evolved from hunters, and he thought he understood strength and weakness. He saw the humans offering peace and decided they were weak. "Your words mean nothing," Thax said through the communicator. "Your people talk about peace because you are too weak to fight. We take what we want, and you offer us tea and papers to sign." Jake stood up from his chair. He walked to the communication panel and pressed a button. "General Thax," he said, his voice carrying through the ship and across space to the Korthak fleet. "This is Commander Morrison. I want to tell you a story about human history." The alien stopped laughing. Something in Jake's tone made him pay attention. Long ago on Earth, there was a place called Pearl Harbor. On December 7th, 1941, one nation attacked another without warning. They killed thousands of people who were just doing their jobs. The nation that got attacked had been trying to avoid war. They wanted peace. Jake paused, looking at the stars through his window. The attackers thought that wanting peace meant being unable to fight. They were wrong. Very wrong. It took 2 entire cities turned to ash before they understood their mistake. The communication channel went quiet. Even the Zephyrians had stopped talking. The lesson, General Thax, is simple. Humans choose peace not because we cannot make war, but because we are very, very good at it. When someone forces us to stop choosing peace, they learn exactly how good we are. Jake turned to his crew. Lisa was already checking weapon systems. Danny was sending coded messages to the other human ships in the area. Carter had stopped talking about compromise and was now reviewing target information. "Time to show them who we really are," Jake said quietly. The harmony began to change. Panels slid open to reveal weapons that had been hidden. The friendly diplomatic ship started to look like what it really was. A warship designed to end fights quickly and completely. The peaceful mask was coming off. And the galaxy was about to learn what humans were really like when someone hurt innocent people. The change in the humans was quick and scary. Within just a few hours, the ship called Harmony looked completely different. Weapons appeared from hidden places. Big guns and missile tubes came out of walls that had looked normal before. The friendly, diplomatic vessel now looked like a war machine. Ambassador Helen Carter was no longer wearing her nice diplomatic clothes. She now had on military uniform with badges and ranks that no alien had ever seen before. Her voice when she spoke to the Korthak fleet was not warm anymore. It was cold like the empty space between stars. "Attention, Korthak fleet," she said over all communication channels. "This is Admiral Helen Carter of the Terran Defense Force. You have killed innocent civilians who were under our protection. This cannot be allowed to continue." General Thax answered back, still sounding like he thought this was funny. "Your threats are empty, human. We count 12 of your tiny ships against our battle fleet of 300 vessels. You cannot win." Danny Rodriguez looked up from his control station. He was not the friendly young officer anymore. His eyes were hard and focused. "General, you are wrong. You count 12 ships that you can see, but you cannot see all of our ships." Suddenly, screens all over the Korthak fleet started showing something impossible. Human soldiers were walking through the corridors of Korthak ships. These humans moved like trained fighters, not like the careful diplomats the Korthak had met before. They carried weapons and moved with deadly purpose. "How long have you been on our ships?" Thax asked. His voice was not laughing anymore. For the first time, he sounded afraid. "Since the day you entered this star system," Admiral Carter answered. "Did you really think a species that conquered its own planet through war would not know how to fight? The humans who had been living on Korthak ships for weeks were not who they had claimed to be. The maintenance worker who fixed their engines was actually a military engineer who knew exactly how to break those same engines. The cook who made their food was an expert in chemicals that could put enemies to sleep. The cultural teacher who had been so nice to Korthak children was really a tactical specialist who had been mapping every important part of their ships. Commander Jake Morrison watched his tactical screen with satisfaction. The Korthak had made a classic mistake. They judged what humans could do by watching what humans chose to do. They saw diplomats and thought that meant humans were weak. They never realized that every human cultural exchange had been a spy mission. "Lisa, how many combat ships do we really have in this area?" Jake asked his second officer. 47 warships, all invisible to their sensors, she reported, plus the orbital weapons platforms we built while they thought we were making communication stations. The Zephyrian delegates on the Harmony stared in shock as the humans around them completely changed. Weapons came out of hiding places. Art and cultural displays were replaced by military equipment. The humans themselves seemed different. They moved like hunters instead of peaceful visitors. "You lied to all of us," Prime Minister Veltar said to Admiral Carter. "You are not peacekeepers at all." Carter looked at him, and her expression got softer for just a moment. "We are peacekeepers. That is exactly what we are. But real peace is not kept by hoping and wishing. Real peace is kept by making war so terrible that nobody wants to start one." She turned back to address the Korthak fleet. "You will do exactly what we tell you. You will leave Zephyrian space immediately. You will pay for the damage you caused when you killed those innocent people. You will do this because the other choice is learning why humans are the only species to survive 3 different disasters that should have killed everything on our planet." The space around them was quiet except for the soft sound of weapons charging up and the barely heard whispers of human soldiers taking control of Korthak ships. General Thax looked at his command screens in growing horror. His weapons were not working. His engines were under someone else's control. Humans he had thought were friends were now clearly his captors. Every single human on every single Korthak ship had been a soldier in disguise. "This is impossible," he said. "How did you get so many people onto our ships without us knowing?" "It was easy," said a new voice. A human named Pete Murphy appeared on Thax's command screen. Pete had been working as a maintenance helper on the Korthak flagship for 3 weeks. Everyone thought he was just a simple repair worker. "You invited us aboard. You asked us to fix your machines, cook your food, and teach your children. We said yes to all of it." Pete held up a device that looked like a repair tool but was clearly something much more dangerous. "Funny thing about humans, General. We are very good at being whatever we need to be. When we need to be diplomats, we are great diplomats. When we need to be soldiers, we are even better soldiers." Across the Korthak fleet, the same scene played out on ship after ship. Chef Maria Lopez, who had been serving human food in the officer dining halls, showed that she knew more about dangerous chemicals than cooking. Teacher Ben Hayes, who had been playing games with Korthak children, demonstrated that those games were actually military training exercises. "Every human?" General Thax asked, though he already knew the answer. "Every single one," Admiral Carter confirmed. "Did you think we would send real diplomats to handle a military threat? We sent soldiers who were trained in diplomacy. There is a big difference." Jake Morrison stood up from his command chair. "General Thax, this is not war, this is pest control. War is what happens when we stop being polite." To prove his point, Jake ordered one shot to be fired at a large asteroid floating nearby. The energy beam from the Harmony completely destroyed the rock, which was 12 kilometers wide. The explosion was so bright it outshone the local star for several seconds. Every sensor in the star system recorded energy readings that should not have been possible from a ship the size of the Harmony. The Zephyrian observers had gone very quiet. Their big eyes kept looking back and forth between the humans and their displays showing the destruction of the asteroid. "The peaceful solutions you offered to everyone," Prime Minister Veltar whispered. "The meditation centers, the cultural exchanges, the trade agreements, and all real," Admiral Carter told him. "Humans really do prefer peace. We are very good at peace, but we are also very good at war. We learned long ago that sometimes you have to be extremely good at the second thing to maintain the first thing." Danny looked up from his station. "Admiral, the Korthak fleet is asking for permission to leave Zephyrian space." "No," Carter said firmly. "They do not get to leave until they understand the complete lesson." She opened a communication channel directly to General Thax. "General, I want you to understand something very clearly. Every species in this galaxy thinks humans are gentle because we choose to be gentle. When that choice is taken away from us, we become something completely different." On the tactical display, more human ships began to appear throughout the star system. Not just the few dozen the Korthak had detected, but hundreds of vessels that had been waiting in the darkness between planets. "We are not the weak prey species you thought we were," Carter continued. We are predators who learn to grow food instead of hunt for it. But we never forgot how to hunt. General Thax's pride lasted exactly 14 minutes. That was how long it took for his flagship's main weapons to stop working completely, while a human named Pete Murphy stood in his command center smiling like nothing was wrong. "Looks like your power lines got mixed up," Pete said in a cheerful voice. He was standing right in the middle of the Korthak Bridge where no human should have been able to go. There were supposed to be multiple security doors and guards between the outside and this room. "This happens a lot with older ships. Good thing I brought my tools." The toolkit Pete carried was not filled with normal repair equipment. Thax could see devices that looked more expensive than his entire ship. One small machine alone could probably buy a whole planet on the black market. All across the Korthak fleet, the same thing was happening. Chef Maria Lopez had been making food for the officers for weeks. Now she was explaining to those same officers how she could have poisoned them at any time, but chose not to. The chemicals she knew about could put people to sleep without killing them or make them very sick for days. Cultural teacher Ben Hayes had been showing Korthak children fun human games. Now he was demonstrating how those games were actually ways to learn military tactics and strategy. The children had been learning how to fight without even knowing it. "Every single human on every single ship?" Thax asked. His voice sounded tired and defeated. "Everyone," Admiral Carter confirmed from her ship. "Did you think we would send real civilian workers to deal with a military threat? We sent soldiers who knew how to act like civilian workers. There is a very big difference." Thax watched his control screens as human operatives took control of ship after ship without firing a single shot. His entire invasion force was being defeated by people who had eaten dinner with his crews and told stories to his children. Many of his officers had started to think of these humans as friends. "This is how your people fight wars?" he asked. "Commander," Morrison answered from his tactical station. "This is not war, General. This is cleaning up a mess. War is what happens when we stop being nice about it." To show what he meant, the Harmony fired one shot at another asteroid. This rock was even bigger than the first one, maybe 20 kilometers across. The energy beam turned it into glowing dust in less than a second. The light from the explosion was so bright that automatic filters had to protect everyone's eyes. Every sensor in the star system detected energy levels that should not have been possible. The Harmony was not even a big ship compared to some vessels in the Korthak fleet, but it had just displayed more firepower than most entire battle groups. The Zephyrian observers on the bridge had stopped talking completely. Prime Minister Veltar kept looking back and forth between the humans and the displays showing the destroyed asteroid. His large eyes were wider than anyone had ever seen them. "The peaceful solutions you offered to the Council," he whispered, to Admiral Carter. "The meditation centers where we could learn calm thinking, the cultural exchange programs, the trade agreements that would help everyone. All completely real," Carter assured him. "Humans truly do prefer peace. We are very good at creating peaceful solutions, but we are also very good at war. And we learned a long time ago that sometimes you need to be extremely good at the second thing to maintain the first thing." Lieutenant Rodriguez looked up from his control station. "Admiral, the Korthak fleet is requesting permission to retreat from Zephyrian space." "Request denied," Carter said without hesitation. "They do not get to leave until they have learned the complete lesson." She opened a direct communication line to General Thax's flagship. "General, I need you to understand something very important. Every species in this galaxy believes humans are gentle because we choose to be gentle. When someone forces us to stop choosing gentleness, we become something completely different." The main tactical display showed human ships appearing throughout the entire star system. Not just the few dozen that the Korthak had detected earlier, but hundreds of warships that had been hiding in the empty space between planets and moons. "We are not the prey species you mistook us for," Carter continued. "We are hunters who learn to grow crops instead of hunting for food. But we never forgot how to hunt when we need to." Each human ship that appeared was bigger and more heavily armed than the one before it. Some were so large they could have been mistaken for small moons. Others were sleek and fast, clearly built for hit-and-run attacks. All of them had been invisible to Korthak sensors until this moment. Jake Morrison stood up from his command chair and walked to the main viewing window. He looked out at the Korthak fleet, which now seemed very small compared to the human forces surrounding it. "General Thax," he said, his voice carrying clearly through the communication system. "Your species evolved from pack hunters. You understand strength and weakness. You know what it means when a predator shows its teeth." Jake gestured toward the tactical display. "We are showing you our teeth. Not because we want to use them, but because we want you to understand what happens if you force us to use them." The Korthak general stared at his screens in growing horror. Human ships were everywhere. Weapons more powerful than anything in his fleet were pointed at every one of his vessels. Soldiers he had thought were friends were in complete control of his command systems. "How long have you been planning this?" Thax asked. "Since the moment your first ship entered this star system," Admiral Carter replied. "Every human diplomatic mission includes complete preparation for military action. We hope we never need those preparations, but we always have them ready." Pete Murphy, still standing in the Korthak command center, held up a small device. "This little thing could shut down your life support systems," he said conversationally. "Or I could use this one to send your ship spinning out of control. Or maybe this one that would make your artificial gravity stop working." He put the devices back in his toolkit. "But I would rather not use any of them. I would much rather we all stayed friends and worked out a peaceful solution to this problem." The contrast was terrifying. Pete's voice was friendly, and his manner was casual, but the threat was absolutely clear. He could kill everyone on the ship without even trying hard. "What do you want from us?" General Thax asked. Admiral Carter's voice became formal and official. "The Korthak Empire will immediately withdraw all military forces from Zephyrian space. You will pay full compensation for the civilian ship you destroyed and all the innocent lives you took. You will establish a buffer zone around Zephyrian territory and agree never to threaten them again." She paused to let this sink in. "In return, we will allow your fleet to leave this system with all ships and crew intact. You will also be invited to participate in human peacekeeping training programs, so this kind of misunderstanding does not happen again." The offer was generous, but the alternative was clear. Accept the terms or face the full military might of humanity. General Thax looked around his command center at Pete Murphy, who was still smiling cheerfully while holding tools that could kill everyone on the ship. He thought about the hundreds of human warships surrounding his fleet. He remembered the asteroids being turned to dust by weapons that defied all understanding. "We accept your terms," he said quietly. "Excellent," Admiral Carter replied. "Welcome to the new galactic order, General. One where peace is maintained not by hope but by strength." The surrender of the Korthak fleet changed everything in the galaxy. News of what happened spread from star system to star system, faster than light travel. Species that had never paid much attention to humans suddenly wanted to know everything about them. The small, seemingly weak creatures from Earth were not what anyone had thought. 3 weeks after the Korthak defeat, Ambassador Helen Carter found herself in a very different position. She was no longer just a diplomatic representative. She was now the official human liaison to what the galaxy was calling the new peacekeeping initiative. Every major species wanted to talk to her. Carter sat in her office aboard the newly designated command ship UES Guardian. The Guardian was 3 times larger than the Harmony and made no attempt to hide what it was. Weapon systems were visible on the outside hull. Military personnel walked the corridors openly. There was no more pretending that humans were simple. Diplomats. Commander Jake Morrison entered her office carrying a datapad filled with requests from alien governments. 47 different species have asked for human peacekeeping assistance in the last week, he reported. The Altarians want help with pirate attacks. The Centauri Federation is asking us to mediate their border dispute with the Vegan Republic. Even the Andromedans are interested in talks. Carter looked at the list with tired eyes. And the Korthak? General Thax has been replaced by someone more reasonable. The new Korthak leadership has formally requested inclusion in our peacekeeping training programs. They want to learn what they call human methods of conflict resolution. This was perhaps the most surprising development of all. The Korthak Empire, which had built its entire culture around strength and conquest, was now asking to learn from the species they had tried to intimidate. Danny Rodriguez knocked on the door and entered. He had been promoted to lieutenant commander and was now in charge of communications with alien governments. "Ma'am, we have a problem. The Zephyrians are asking some difficult questions." Carter gestured for him to continue. "Prime Minister Veltar wants to know how long humans have been preparing for military action. He is asking specific questions about our cultural exchange programs and whether they were always spy missions." This was the question Carter had been expecting and dreading. The Zephyrians had been humanity's strongest supporters in the Galactic Council. They had trusted humans completely, and now they were learning that trust had been built on incomplete information. "Set up a meeting with the Prime Minister," Carter ordered. "It is time for complete honesty." 2 hours later, Prime Minister Veltar arrived at the Guardian with a small group of advisors. The Zephyrian leader looked older than Carter, remembered. The events of the past few weeks had clearly affected him deeply. "Prime Minister," Carter began, "I know you have questions about human activities in the galaxy. I am prepared to answer all of them truthfully." Veltar's large eyes studied her carefully. "Ambassador Carter, my people trusted humans completely. We believed you were a peaceful species that had no capacity for large-scale violence. We now learn this was not accurate." "It was not inaccurate," Carter corrected gently. "It was incomplete. Humans are peaceful by choice, not by necessity. We prefer diplomatic solutions because they work better than violent ones, not because we cannot make violent solutions work." She activated a holographic display that showed human activities throughout the galaxy over the past 5 years. Every cultural exchange program was genuine. Our people really did want to learn about other species and share human knowledge. But yes, they also gathered information about military capabilities and political situations. The display showed human diplomats on dozens of worlds, all of them engaged in what appeared to be normal cultural activities. But now it was clear that they had also been mapping defense systems, studying alien psychology, and preparing detailed reports on every species they encountered. "You have been spying on everyone," Veltar said. "It was not a question. We have been gathering information," Carter admitted. "Just as every other species in the galaxy gathers information about their neighbors. The difference is that humans are very good at it." Jake Morrison stepped forward. "Prime Minister, may I ask you a question? In the past 5 years, how many wars has the galaxy seen?" Veltar thought for a moment. "Very few. The lowest number in recorded history." "How many civilian populations have been attacked by aggressive species?" "Almost none, until the Korthak incident." "How many trade disputes have escalated into military conflicts?" "None that I can recall." Jake nodded. "That was not an accident. Human peacekeeping efforts have prevented dozens of conflicts from becoming wars. We stopped 3 different invasion plans before they could be carried out. We mediated 17 border disputes before they became shooting wars. We did all of this quietly without taking credit, because we wanted peace to appear natural rather than imposed." Carter brought up another display. The Korthak Empire had been planning attacks on 6 different species, not just the Zephyrians. The Trigonian Collective was preparing to claim exclusive rights to 3 star systems that belonged to smaller species. The hegemony of suns was designing weapons specifically to terrorize civilian populations. All of these plans were stopped by human intervention? Veltar asked. All of them, sometimes through diplomacy, sometimes through economic pressure, sometimes through what you might call sabotage. We have been working very hard to maintain galactic peace, but we have been doing it in ways that most species never noticed. Danny Rodriguez added, "The galaxy has been more peaceful in the past 5 years than it had been in the previous 50 years. That was not luck or natural development. That was human peacekeeping operations working exactly as intended." Prime Minister Veltar was quiet for a long time. His advisors whispered among themselves in their musical language. Finally, he spoke again. "You manipulated us. You manipulated everyone. We influenced events toward peaceful outcomes," Carter said carefully. "We prevented wars, stopped invasions, and encouraged cooperation. If you want to call that manipulation, then yes, we manipulated the galaxy toward peace. And now that your true capabilities are known, what happens next? Carter stood up and walked to the large viewing window that showed stars in every direction. Now we can be honest about what we are doing. Instead of working in secret, we can work openly. Instead of preventing wars quietly, we can prevent them, with everyone watching. She turned back to face the Zephyrian delegation. The galaxy now knows that humans have the capability to enforce peace through strength. Species that might have considered aggression against their neighbors now know there will be consequences. This knowledge alone will prevent most conflicts. Jake Morrison pulled up a final display. We are proposing the creation of a formal galactic peacekeeping force with human training and leadership. Any species can join. Any species can request assistance. But everyone will know that breaking galactic peace means facing human military response. And if species refuse to join this peacekeeping force? Veltar asked. They are free to refuse, Carter said. But they will not be free to attack their neighbors without consequences. The age of unopposed aggression in this galaxy is over. The Zephyrian Prime Minister looked at his advisors one more time, then back at the humans. My government will need time to consider this proposal. Of course, Carter agreed. But while you are considering it, remember this. The galaxy is safer today than it was a month ago. Your people are safer. Your children will grow up in a more peaceful universe. That was always our goal. As the Zephyrian delegation prepared to leave, Veltar paused at the door. Ambassador Carter, may I ask one personal question? Certainly. Do you sleep well at night knowing what your people have done? Carter smiled, and for the first time in weeks it reached her eyes. I sleep very well, Prime Minister. I sleep knowing that millions of innocent people are alive today because of what we have done. I sleep knowing that children across the galaxy will grow up without fear of war. Yes, I sleep very well. After the Zephyrians left, Jake Morrison sat down heavily in a chair. Do you think they will join the peacekeeping force? They will, Carter said confidently. They understand that the alternative is chaos. Every species in the galaxy now has to choose. Join the human peacekeeping system, or face the possibility of dealing with human peacekeeping operations. The galaxy had learned what humans were capable of. Now it had to decide what to do with that knowledge. 6 months after the Korthak surrender, the galaxy looked completely different. The new galactic peacekeeping force had 43 member species, more than anyone had expected. Even former enemies were asking to join what everyone now called the human peace system. Admiral Helen Carter stood in the main assembly hall of the newly built peacekeeping command station. The massive structure orbited between 3 major star systems, making it easy for ships from anywhere in the galaxy to reach it quickly. Through the huge transparent walls, she could see vessels from dozens of different species docked at the station. The morning briefing was about to begin. Representatives from member species sat around a circular table that had been designed to show that no one group was more important than others. But everyone knew that the humans were in charge. And surprisingly, most species seemed comfortable with that arrangement. Commander Jake Morrison entered the room carrying the daily reports. His new uniform showed his promotion to admiral, and he now commanded the largest peacekeeping fleet in galactic history. Good morning, Admiral Carter. We have updates from 7 different sectors. Jake activated the holographic display in the center of the table. A 3-dimensional map of the galaxy appeared, with different colored lights showing the status of various regions. Green meant peaceful, yellow meant potential problems, and red meant active conflicts requiring intervention. The Rigel sector is green, Jake reported. The border dispute between the Canopus Alliance and the Sirius Federation was resolved through mediation. Both sides agreed to the resource-sharing agreement we proposed. This was exactly the kind of success the peacekeeping force had been designed to achieve. Instead of letting small disagreements grow into wars, human-trained mediators were stopping conflicts before they could start. Danny Rodriguez, now a full commander, spoke next. The Vega system is yellow. Intelligence reports suggest the Tau Zeti Empire is considering expansion into neutral space. We have ships moving to observe the situation. Any signs of actual military buildup? Carter asked. Not yet, but we are watching closely. Our people in their government report increasing talk about reclaiming historical territories in their parliament. This was the new reality of galactic politics. Human intelligence operations were no longer secret. Everyone knew that humans had sources of information throughout the galaxy, but now this was seen as a necessary part of maintaining peace rather than sneaky spying. The Zephyrian representative, Minister Colvan, raised his hand. Admiral Carter, my government would like to know how you plan to handle the Tau Ceti situation if they do decide to expand. Carter looked at the display showing Tau Ceti ships near the border of neutral space. We will follow standard protocol. First, diplomatic contact to understand their intentions. Second, economic incentives to encourage peaceful alternatives. Third, a show of force to demonstrate the consequences of aggression. And if none of those work? Asked the Altarian delegate. Then we remind them what happened to the Korthak fleet. Jake Morrison answered simply. The room went quiet. Everyone remembered the images of Korthak ships being disabled without a shot being fired, and the asteroids being vaporized by weapons that should not have existed. No species wanted to face that kind of demonstration themselves. The Korthak representative, General Morthak, spoke up. The reformed Korthak government would like to contribute ships to the Tau Ceti observation mission. We believe our presence might help convince them that resistance to peacekeeping operations is not wise. This was perhaps the most amazing change of all. The Korthak Empire had completely reformed their military philosophy after their defeat. Instead of seeking conquest, they now worked to prevent other species from making the same mistakes they had made. Approved, Carter said. But remember, this is observation only. No aggressive actions without direct orders from Peacekeeping Command. Understood, Admiral. Carter stood up and walked to the large viewing window that looked out into space. She could see the ships of the Peacekeeping Force arranged in neat formations around the station. Human vessels worked alongside Zephyrian science ships, Altarian fast cruisers, and even reformed Korthak battleships. Ladies, gentlemen, and beings of all classifications, she said, addressing the entire assembly. 6 months ago, this galaxy was on the edge of multiple wars. The Korthak were planning invasions. The hegemony of suns was building weapons of terror. Dozens of smaller conflicts were ready to explode into major battles. She turned back to face the group. Today, we have the most peaceful galaxy in recorded history. Trade between species is at an all-time high. Scientific cooperation has led to breakthroughs that benefit everyone. Children of every species can grow up without fear of war. Minister Colvan nodded slowly. The Zephyrian government acknowledges that human methods have been effective, but many of our people still have concerns about the concentration of military power in human hands. Those concerns are reasonable, Carter admitted. Power concentrated in any single group is dangerous. That is why we are working to train peacekeeping forces from every member species. Eventually, humans will be advisors and coordinators rather than the primary military force. Jake Morrison brought up another display showing training programs on dozens of worlds. We currently have peacekeeping academies operating in 47 star systems. Officers from member species are learning human tactical methods, diplomatic techniques, and intelligence gathering. But the ultimate weapons remain under human control, the Centauri representative pointed out. For now, yes, Carter agreed. But as other species develop their own advanced capabilities and prove their commitment to galactic peace, that will change. The goal is not human dominance, but galactic stability. Danny Rodriguez received a message on his communication device and looked up with concern. Admiral, we have a situation developing in the Proxima sector. Long-range sensors are detecting unusual energy signatures. Carter immediately returned to the tactical display. What kind of energy signatures? Unknown configuration. Nothing in our database matches these readings, and they are moving toward inhabited systems. The room became tense. An unknown threat was exactly the kind of situation the peacekeeping force had been created to handle. All peacekeeping fleets are to move to alert status, Carter ordered. I want reconnaissance ships dispatched to Proxima immediately. If this is a new aggressive species, they need to understand the current galactic situation before they make any mistakes. Jake Morrison was already coordinating fleet movements. Human battle groups are moving to intercept positions. Allied forces are taking supporting roles. We should have visual contact with whatever this is within 12 hours. As the meeting broke up and representatives hurried to contact their home governments, Carter remained at the viewing window. The galaxy had learned to live with human peacekeeping, but new challenges would always appear. Minister Colvan approached her as the room emptied. "Admiral, do you ever wonder if your people have taken on too much responsibility?" Carter smiled at the Zephyrian. "Every day, Minister. But then I remember what the galaxy was like before humans stepped forward to maintain peace. I remember the wars that were about to happen, and the innocent lives that would have been lost." She gestured toward the peaceful scene outside the window, where ships from former enemy species now worked together as allies. "The galaxy chose peace, Minister. Humans just made sure that choice was respected." As alarms began to sound and ships prepared to investigate the new threat, Carter felt the familiar weight of responsibility settle on her shoulders. The predator mask had not slipped. It had been deliberately removed. And now the galaxy was safer because everyone knew what happened when human patience finally ran out. Peace, it turned out, was not the absence of the ability to make war. Peace was having that ability and choosing not to use it, while making sure everyone understood what the choice meant. The unknown ships in Proxima Sector would learn this lesson soon enough.